fasted on Yom Kippur. They went to shul on the holidays. And,
Oh, they did?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they weren't irreligious, but they weren't totally religious.
Mm-hmm. But they didn't keep kosher?
I think they did.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, I think they did.
So when you were a kid, they kept kosher at home?
I think so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I see. So let's go back to when you started to go to school.
Yeah.
So what's the earliest school you remember?
The school was only a few blocks away. I think it was PS 35. Yeah, PS 35.
This was what, after you had moved to Bedford-Stuyvesant?
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm. This was an elementary school.
Elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that only went up a few grades, and the higher grades went to PS 70, which was about a dozen blocks away.
Mm-hmm. So what do you remember about those schools?
Didn't remember too much about PS 35, except that I got a long story to tell you if you want to hear the story about the school. My father was in the cigar business, and he sold cigars at that time. The biggest seller were 2 for a nickel, and they used to get the wrappers for the cigars in Pennsylvania. The fillers could be almost anything, but the wrappers came from Pennsylvania. And came a time when they couldn't get those wrappers anymore. They were diseased or something, and he was going to go out of business because he needed cigars to sell 2 for a nickel. So he got in touch with some factory in the Philippine Islands, and he put down on the thing enough to cover. You had to buy it by the carload.
Mm-hmm.
And he made out this check, and the check went to the factory, and as soon as the factory got the check, those goods were yours.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he put all his money, I guess he even borrowed money, to get this carload of cigars. Have you heard this story before?
I think so,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'll make it faster. So, in any event, he did this, and the cigars were put on carts drawn by oxen, and they were headed down to the pier, and apparently they missed the boat. The boat sailed without these cigars, and these cigars were lying on the wharf. And in those days, cigars were in boxes of 100, with no cellophane, no foil, no nothing. They were just cigars. And inside these cases of cigars, they had a metal thing which was supposed to protect them. Anyhow, when they were waiting for the next ship, a monsoon came in, and the monsoon went beyond this metal covering on the inside. It got into all the cigars, and it caught the next boat, and eventually they were delivered to Patchen Avenue. Tremendous truck, you know, and eventually it filled up this whole store from one end to the other with these cases. It took them a whole day to deliver it, case after case after case. We signed for the delivery. We opened up the first case, took out the first box, opened it up. It was all covered with green mold on the top of these cigars. And what do you do? That was the end of them, financially, every other way. Now we get a flashback back to my grandfather in Washington Heights. He used to grow grapes in the backyard, and these grapes were sour. They were terrible. But he made wine out of these grapes. And everybody came in, they taste the wine and run for the bathroom or do something not to be discourteous because nobody could drink this wine. But that didn't discourage him. Every year he'd grow more wine, bottle of wine, and he'd put it under the porch. My father's now thinking what to do with these cigars, and he thinks of my grandfather with this wine. So he calls him up and he says, "Pop, you still got that wine?" "Well, sure, he's got this wine." He said, "I want to try out a bottle." So he opened up the box upside down. He started with the bottom layer, painted the cigars, and not alone did the green mold disappear, but it took on a nice brown luster, like a real expensive wrapper, even much better than a Pennsylvania wrapper, almost like a Havana wrapper. And he did a few of these boxes, and he made up some signs, said, "Wine soap perfectos." He put 2 thumbtacks on it, and he tried it out in one place. And boy, they liked those cigars. So he tried them out now, and every place he put them, everybody liked those cigars. So the problem was to get them painted up fast enough. When we come back to PS 35, I had kids in my class that I used to bring home with me, and they'd get paid, I don't know what it was, a nickel for a box or what, and we'd all stand there painting these cigars.
How old were you at that time?
Well, I was going to elementary school. I don't know exactly how old I was. So,
Well, what grade were you in?
I don't know, what grade would I be in?
I'm not allowed to talk.
I know. You can talk. About the 5th grade, 6th grade, something.
By that time, you were in PS 70.
PS 70? Could be. Well, maybe I was a little younger. So anyhow, eventually, these guys sold like crazy. And
He was selling them to the, as a wholesaler, he was
yeah,
selling.
he sold them to stores in
Uh-huh.
different places.
Mhm.
And eventually, they used up this whole shipment. It took many years, but eventually they used up this whole shipment. And people kept demanding what happened to those wine-soaked cigars. And that was the end of the wine-soaked cigar because they were now growing Pennsylvania wrappers again. He was about to go through that kind of experience again. So that was the story of the wine-soaked cigars.
So how did he happen to get into this business? Was he a big smoker himself?
He was he was a traveling salesman, a pipe salesman. He went all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a related industry. He got to know people in the pipe business, people in the cigar business,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually he figured he'd take a crack at the cigar business.
Mm-hmm. But was he a big smoker of cigars himself?
Yeah, he smoked cigars.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle smoked cigars. I smoked cigars. I used to have a box of cigars on a seat in the car. When I met your mother, I smoked cigars.
So did you stop because of the health scare, or you just got tired of smoking cigars?
Well, the health scare, but actually when I really stopped was when Yetta's father had his health troubles.
Oh, really?
And at that point, that was the convincing push for me not to smoke.
Uh-huh. Because he had problems because he smoked?
Well, I think he did, didn't he? Yeah.
He probably had died of lung cancer.
Lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one. In fact, I always had a taste for him. I remember one time we went to. I gave it up. I wasn't going to smoke cigars anymore.
Mm-hmm.
One time we went to a very fancy restaurant, and our meal was delicious, and I could feel it on my stomach. Very satisfied. We went to pay the check. They had a counter, glass case with cigars in it. And in there has these fine green Havana cigars. The wrappers were green. That made them really good. And I said, I'll have one cigar, I'll try it. A meal like that, having a cigar, that's when you can really enjoy a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought this cigar and I lit it up. It tasted just like ashes. It didn't have any taste at all, and that was the last cigar I smoked.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to smoke.
That was around the time that
Yeah.
he got sick.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So what do you remember about your teachers in the school? Do you remember any of your teachers there?
Not an awful lot.
No?
No.
Did you enjoy going to school?
I guess I did. I don't have any particular thing that I remember about it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I went to PS 70, we had cousins. I think I told you. We had cousins up on, PS 70 was at Saratoga Avenue or something like that, one of those streets up there. And I used to visit them once in a while.
What were their names?
Dryer.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have that on your?
I think I had some dryers. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
And what I remember about the Dryers was that they had, about 12 children, I think. He was a tailor.
Mm-hmm.
And the tailor it was like a brownstone. I guess one of those today would sell for a fortune. But at that time, they lived in a brownstone. On the bottom floor, he had his tailor shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they had a tragedy that one of the older kids came home some Saturday night, and he threw his hat on the gas jet. They had gas heating at that time, gas lighting. And apparently throwing his hat, he unjiggled the control, and the gas leaked out, and 2 of the kids died during the night from the gas.
That's peculiar that like 2 would die and all the rest would be okay.
Yeah, well, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess they must have smelled the gas.
Mm-hmm.
They came in, and for some it was okay, and some it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So did they have kids